Okay. Interesting. I'm really getting annoyed by all the pop-ups we get in the field of usability. It leave people give people space. Don't force them to click something. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an experience I make as a gay man because the looks I have. Women often say to me, "You're looking toxic." And I was once in the store. I'm married with my husband, and I want to buy a present for him. And I came in and I had the bomber jacket and my shaven head and a beard. And she said, "I said hi." I said, "Can you help me, please? I'm looking for my husband. I'm looking for a present." And she said, "Oh, you're friendly." And I said, "Yes, sure. Why not? Yeah, you're looking so toxic." And this is a thing that this is one of the reasons. I mean, okay, this is not good. This is so object is yes, it's subjective. It's to surface, you know. Oh, I see something, and he's in a category.
Interesting. It never happened to me like that. But should we still focus on the reading for a bit
But
before?
yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I'm quite a rugged guy.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm think. It relates to the things we read about.
Mm-hmm. How are you guys getting on? 1 minute and a half to finish. How are you guys getting on? A minute and a half to finish. All right, time's up. Let's um let's move on to the discussion. So yeah, once again, same as before. I wonder what you guys thought about those texts. Obviously, they take a very different spin, right, and approach the topic from a different angle. So I'm curious what you think of them. And once again, I would have some questions to you as well. But let's first start with your first impressions.
I I mean, compared to the other two articles, they appear much shallower, more defensive in their attitude. They sort of prescribe this, big problem, and they reduce it to like something like, you know, feminism as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
and just that. I mean, they raise valuable points about men being left behind, and society sort of catering for the women, and the men having to stand aside and let women go ahead. That's valid. But the second one with Kirk, I think this is a complete mischaracterization of the man. I think there's just using him to like push some agenda.
In what way? What do you mean mischaracterization?
I mean, they're just painting him as a like a saintly figure. I mean, he was not a saintly figure, and if anything, he used his appeal to young men to, I think they call it grifting, to grift. So yeah, I find myself in like uh, attracted more to the first set than this.
Mm-hmm. Rob, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I think it's also a societal mistake, when I may say it like that, if you forgive. Um, it is indeed true that women are more put more in focus since sometimes already, and I it's also marketing and diverse marketing, which is crap. Men doing girl stuff and wearing makeup. I think they can do that, but it's women is good, and I think the shift.
He disconnected.
Oh no. Today is not good for connections,
What's
apparently.
happening today?
Yeah, it's really something. Something is cursed about this this thing today.
Yeah,
Um,
you know, of September. Stay away from that date.
yeah, apparently. Anyway,
Just
yeah,
um,
I have to say that I knew less than I should have about Charlie Kirk until now. I've kind of been aware of him, but that's really it. And yeah, I find it really interesting how much of the supposed help for that, for the lost men and boys that these people offer are actually a way to exploit them. It's kind of like with Andrew Tate and him selling all of the courses, right? And like getting really rich from people buying his stuff. And like does he really care about those people? I doubt it. He's just using them effectively. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think
And
this is.
I very
Mhm. No, please go on.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I was surrounded. I was in this like milieu of people who were influenced by Andrew Tate. Like somebody even described him as this is the second coming of Jesus. But it really speaks to where these people were, like in
Hmm.
terms of like how the male felt in society. Must
Yeah,
have felt so ostracized for a figure like Andrew Tate to be considered saintly, or
yeah,
Charlie Kirk. Like these people were not saintly. These
yeah,
people were not virtuous. These people did not, they were grifters at best.
yeah,
And so, but it just speaks to where the male is, right? And to be like, oh, but there's a variety of opportunities in the current economy that males can take up. I feel like it's also super reductionist
hmm,
because I think it boils down to a lack of meaning in in this like postmodern world,
yeah.
right? Because and it is a symptom, and I don't, yeah, I mean,
I think this is
yeah,
really this is really important what you're saying because I think that the crisis of masculinity very largely is a crisis of meaning, of just not knowing what to do with ourselves in the modern world. Um, and I think that, yeah, I mean, believing some, um, having some very specific, even if outdated ideas about this gives people meaning. And people want to have meaning. And I think that the message of the modern world, which is that, you are free to make your own meaning and you should go out there and everyone should have the freedom to do it themselves and all of that, just doesn't speak to people. Like they want to be told. Um, and I think it is a mistake of, um, those who would want to promote this sort of more free approach to disregard this, right? That there are people who, for whatever reason, would rather not, right? Be like have like do this. They would rather have a clear path to follow, right? Rather than have to figure it out themselves. And like people like Andrew Kirk, Charlie Kirk, or Andrew Tate are kind of filling this void by giving them something that they can follow. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, they do because somebody has given them meaning that they were looking for.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting to see in the second article, he's like, I'm more of a Reaganite than MAGA.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, like Reagan is the one that dismissed society. Reagan
Yeah.
is the one who was like, we need to essentially design our nation to completely focus on the market and benefit the people who operate in the market. And
Yeah.
like I think as a direct result, we have lost touch with community, and so it becomes easier for like these online figures who come and sweet talk you, talk to your
Hmm.
pain, and and then very much present you with this like big, this big boogeyman, right?
Hmm.
Like feminism. This is why you're suffering. This is why your life has no meaning. It's because of feminism, and it's because of the woke agenda. It just makes it so simple. And
Hmm.
I think, this is the time. I think I can't remember the full quote, but it's something like the old world is dying and the new one is struggling to be born. This is like the time of the monsters. And I
Yeah.
think these are different forms of monsters. Like people who grift on people's pain are a type of monster who offer no real solution because they themselves don't know and maybe even don't care,
Hmm.
but they just care to be maybe famous or to
Yeah.
make some money or just maybe serve an agenda, something ideological.
Yeah, and I think this is something that you were mentioning earlier as well, which is that, this kind of old, like it's an illusion that this traditional more patriarchal masculinity actually serves all men. It doesn't. It serves those few who are, in this situation in which they can effectively exploit everybody else, right? And I think that this goes to like even the etymology of the word patriarchy itself. It's not the rule of the men, it's the rule of the fathers, right? It's the rule of those who are actually in power, or those who are, stronger in this case, or um, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
agree, and I
I
think,
think
go on,
no. If you have something to say, go ahead.
please, no.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to this. There's this meta-modern philosophy that sort of looks as evolution as this like cyclical
Hmm.
um, mm, process where we keep attempting to build on top of what's old, being like, this is we got the better, we got the latest version, the latest OS,
Hmm.
right? Forget about the old gods, we have modernity, we have, civil constitutions and all these fancy new institutions that will protect your rights. You don't need God anymore, right? But still, people need God.
Hmm.
People need God because they're attached to the idea. People need God because it provided them community, provided them support.
Yeah.
People need God because for whatever reason, right? So you can't just say, let's forget about God. And then postmodernism came and was like, yeah, so, this modernity tried to create these big, fabulous ideas and tried to reshape the world where they forgot about the queers, they forgot about women, they forgot about black people. This is a white man's world that they've built for themselves. So we need to redo this whole thing,
Hmm.
and we need to just take it apart. And this is like you can see movements like feminism and LGBTQ and plus and like black liberation movements coming out of this phase where it's like modernism forgot about us. It built a massive, beautiful new world, but it
Hmm.
forgot about us.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting in the result of all those three, right? It's like we're still struggling with God, we're still struggling with institution, and we're still struggling with identity. And I think, unfortunately, it seems like we're heading towards an even bigger crisis, right? And we don't know what this looks like because we have technology evolving at a rate that is incomprehensible, right? And so, yeah,
And I think this is really interesting also from the perspective of who has power and how they're using it, because like you're saying, there is, and we've been talking about that before as well, fast-paced change is something that people find difficult. That's just it. Like whatever it is about. Is it economic change? Is it social change? Is it whatever else, right? And the current world is changing at a pace that it never was. And who are the people who are pushing for even faster change? Um,
yeah,
and they are the people who are going to be in power. Yeah. Um,
yeah,
and obviously, I think that it's really interesting how um, well you can manufacture people who are easier to manipulate, right? You manufacture them by creating situations in which there is uncertainty, because in time of uncertainty, people listen to whoever makes them feel safe, regardless of whether they actually, make them safe or do they exploit them. But, like you said, they give them a boogeyman to rally against, and then
yeah,
and that's enough, right, to get people on board with some ideas.
yeah,
Because what those people want is they don't really want a solution; they just want to feel safe. Um, yeah, and I think that there are definitely a lot of grifters out there who, sell the feeling of certainty or sell the feeling of safety. But it's also like what you were saying before and what you're describing right now with the kind of like modernism thing, as and earlier you were saying like, okay, things have worked, but worked for whom? And I think that's the big question, right? It's not that things are better or worse. They are typically better or worse for somebody. And like you said, now with modernism obviously being much better for, certain social groups, it was not good for other social groups. And I think that yeah, the challenge of modernity is to find a way in which we can both, make it better for those groups, but also like, kind of not forget about men in the process. Um, yeah.
I think the problem of grifters goes beyond figures like in the masculinity
Hmm.
sphere even. It goes again to those who push the idea of accelerationism, which
Hmm.
is actually like a whole philosophy coming out of
Yeah.
Silicon Valley and
Yeah.
now migrated to Austin, Texas. And it's certain figures who are very, very interested with this like dark enlightenment and like sort of pushing the world forward
Yeah.
so hard and breaks just it's so fast that nobody can even sort of comprehend what happened. And in that sort of during that whole like cataclysm, they're just setting up this new world that they
Yeah.
want to fashion and they want to decide. And there's this beautiful movie called like Leave the World Behind, which sort of predicts this,
Hmm.
right? Because suddenly everything goes offline and we're under attack. And then you discover, this is a spoiler, but you discover towards the end of the movie like this is a plot manufactured by the military industrial complex or some sort of big brother figure. And one of the most interesting scenes is like there's a plane dropping pamphlets and it says like in Iranian, death to Americans or something, right?
Hmm.
And then they meet other people and they have a Chinese one, and they meet other people and they have like a different kind of one. And it's so like it feels exactly like that for us now.
Yeah.
Because what is your problem? Yeah, what injustice are you facing? It might be completely different than mine, but either way, it always feels like I'm in combat against something or someone. It could be completely abstract, or it could be like, so like now people on the far right being so antagonistic towards trans people. Like, what are trans people actually doing?
Hmm.
What harm are they bringing to, go so strongly against them? Like, they are like a very small minority they make up, yet they are
Hmm.
created to this big boogeyman, scary. Like, you need to
Yeah.
fear it. You need to rally up with us so we can fight it.
Yeah, it becomes a boogeyman, exactly. And yeah, I think that it's something that was also mentioned in those first texts that we were reading, the one about the Charlie Kirk rally, in which the author was going like, a lot of those people are talking as if those were rational arguments and problems and things that are somehow based in and reason, but actually they just feel hurt, right? They just feel bad. And I think that like they feel, I don't know, not listened to, or they feel like they have, I don't know, they can't be who they want to be, or like they don't have a meaning in life, or something like this, or they're not important. And I think the question really is what actually makes them not important versus what, or what actually takes away the meaning in their life. And and what they are told to believe brings that. And I think it's really interesting also from the perspective of what populism has become in these days, which is, back when, I don't know, we have the first populisms of, the 1840s when Marx was writing about the communist revolution and things like this. It was a bottom-up movement. It was people actually wanting a change. Whereas a great deal of populisms today are manufactured.
Yeah,
It's people from the top actually who have a lot of money, have access to media, and have the capacity to create narratives and create, to play on people's emotions. Exactly. Like people are already a bit aggrieved. People are already feeling like, they've not
yeah,
got meaning of life or whatever else. And then you just take advantage of it. and try to sell them
Yeah.
something. And what you're selling them is an ideology, or maybe what you're also selling them, unfortunately, is well, exploit, who is the best customer? Is the person who thinks that they're inadequate and they need to buy to be more adequate, right? You need to get the new, I don't know, fancy car because that's, or you need to, take my course on how to become successful, or you need to whatever else. And manufacturing this sort of feelings of insecurity so that you can sell people
Mm.
things, I think is, yeah, quite rampant.
Yeah. And like I think it's always easy and it makes us feel good to think of a glorious past where this wasn't a problem.
Hmm.
But I think it has been a problem. We've always been insecure, right? And there's always been somebody in power or somebody who's power seeking who's willing to take advantage of our feeling of insecurity,
Hmm.
right? Like we have had so many cults pop up
Hmm.
throughout history, so many states and state leaders and yeah, and some of them are have the interest of the people, let's say, and they want to actually build a vibrant community for many, and some others will pose as that and then use your own instincts against you so that you can help them essentially achieve their goals,
Hmm.
not for your benefit, but exclusively for theirs.
Yeah.
And I see this time as it's exactly that, except that it's global. It's global because, like, why am I talking about Charlie Kirk? Some, I don't know, you could say like an extremist propagandist from the United States. Like,
Hmm.
why should I care?
Hmm.
I'm in Germany, I'm Swedish, I'm Syrian. Why does it matter? Yeah, it does. It's what everyone can talk about.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of the only difference is that through globalization, borders matter less because you have the multinational corporation which operates very fluidly across these borders. And so when a crisis is manufactured in the way that it is being manufactured today, it has a global effect, and whatever consequences is also we're all going to
Yeah.
suffer from.
And I think this is really interesting from, because there's a whole load of crises that are being manufactured. But I wonder to what extent the crisis of masculinity is being manufactured
Yeah,
because it is actually in the interest of somebody that men are
yeah,
unhappy, right? And that men are willing to do whatever, the person who promises them to end the crisis that they have manufactured themselves, um, because, well, that means that they will do what that person wants, right? Um, yeah.
yeah. I mean, is there? I'll tell you my personal experience, right?
Hmm.
I never felt like I was in crisis until these people showed up and started telling me that I was in crisis,
Mm.
right? And I think but at the same time, there are incel cultures popping
Hmm.
up like rapidly, and
Yeah.
membership is increasing by the day, and there's a large, this consumer society pushing so
Hmm.
much pornography into down, into their screens and just essentially stripping them of. And it's not just exclusive to males. Like that's the strange thing about it. It's so many people in general affected by this
Hmm.
development in essentially psychic technology. It's technology that is created to influence how you think, and it targets your limbic system essentially,
Yeah.
so that it can turn you into whatever it is they want you to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like I don't want it to also descend to kind of conspiracy theory situation here. I don't think that there is like a Kabbalah of people trying to do that. It's just a lot of people's self-interest, is in making money, and this is what makes money. Manipulating people is a
Yeah,
great way to make money. Um,
I mean, yeah,
mhm. Yeah, I wonder like to like because we can sit here and complain, but so what? Um, and I wonder what are the ways in which we can actually address this problem. And I think that it is fair to say that the current world has become it has become difficult for men to find meaning and actually probably support to find the meaning that they're looking for, or find some sort of path for themselves. Um, and I guess, we do need to acknowledge the fact that people do struggle. They do. Now,
Yeah,
we can't go about and tell them, oh, you're not allowed to struggle,
yeah.
because, they will keep struggling. It doesn't solve their problems. Um, and I wonder what is the way in which we can actually help with this.
I would like to hear what you think. Do you think? I mean, you are leading this organization
Yeah.
and clearly with a goal. So I would like to hear what
Well, I
you
think
have
that
to say.
I think that there are so this is something that was already in the Richard Reeves text, and it's in his book, which is that I think we should promote ways of a wider variety of ways of being a man, so that men are not feeling like they need to be a certain specific way, which is probably not adjusted to the modern economy or to a world in which other people want to have equal rights and things like this, so that um, those men can not feel like they're failing because what they actually are failing is they're failing to be that specific type of man, but they don't see that there's all of those other ways in which they could be. And I think that the progressive left has not done a very good job in promoting those different ways to be a man. It has done a great job of criticizing the old way of being a man, but it has not done that good a job at promoting those other newer ways. And I think
Yeah,
this is like the biggest opportunity, which is to actually promote better ways.
yeah. I was I watched this video about it, about how the left needed to find a figure, so they tried to push some pop stars
Mm-hmm.
to be the models
Mm-hmm.
for how to be a man, but
Yep.
clearly wasn't well received because the whole thing was like, where's the masculinity, right?
Yeah.
And so now they're pushing this figure. I forgot his name, but it's like Hassan something. He's like a leftist pro Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there he's being featured as that
Yeah.
new sort of facelift, you could say,
Yeah.
for the left. But I think, yeah, I think the problem is like the automation of the human being. We feel so small and insignificant in this world, and some people maybe can cope better than others. The question is like, why are men failing to adapt? Why is it that actually women continue to do well in this very chaotic environment and men don't, right? And is it like where are women getting their meaning from? So
Mm-hmm.
we can start sourcing ours from there, right?
Yeah. I think that it's well, I mean, a lot of the explanations for this have to do with the fact that women were pretty motivated to the change because in the old world they were the ones who were being discriminated against, right?
Hmm.
So obviously for them this is a welcome change. Um, and their narrative would be that men did not have the same motivation to change because the old world did work for them. The old world did not
Hmm.
work for women, but it did work for men, or at least worked better
Yeah.
for them. So they didn't have the motivation to change, so they didn't change. Um, and I think there is some truth to this. Um, I also wonder, like, to what extent, yeah, the options to choose from given to men were just not very well thought through, or not ended up not being very attractive. And I think that this is something that Charlie Kirk was actually talking about a lot, which is that I think he said at some point something like the only men who are drawn to the Democratic Party are the ones who want to be women. Um, right? So, and I think that like it's a typical thing that he would say, and obviously is like divisive and super reductionist and all of this. Um, but I think that there is something in the claim that it is, it has become difficult to be proud to be a man and be progressive, right? Um, and like the path
Yeah,
to, because like proud to be a man automatically for everyone means proud to be like a toxic, or proud to be,
yeah,
this very specific regressive old school
that's true.
masculinity. And we haven't worked out a way to say I'm proud to be a man where a man means something a bit different. And the only options that are given to us are the ones in which it means something that is very, that a lot of the men who are still attached to the idea of being, traditionally masculine man is just too far away for them. They're kind of much more,
Yeah,
um, they would call it feminized, right? I don't think that's the right word, uh, but um, and I think that, yeah, having some sort of offering and having some sort of progressive people who are also unashamedly male, rather than kind of like, a bit ashamed to be men, um, would be really useful.
yeah,
And I mean, that's what I want
and
to do. I think that's what we all,
yes,
who are in this position to use our own, whatever power and privilege we've got, can do to kind of model that sort of thinking. This is why I,
yeah,
for example, am completely uninterested in like questioning my gender identity or something like that. No, I'm a man. I'm proud of it.
yeah. I can sort of try to share my experience. I have a younger brother,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so growing up, having faced what I faced with all these like questions about what it's like to be a man, and why continue to choose to be a man,
Mm-hmm.
and what does that mean exactly, right? Like I've actually gotten to face these questions in across like at some point 2 years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And I can't tell you whether I came to an answer. I think my answer is that there is no such thing as being a man. There is no such thing as
Mm-hmm.
being a man. There is a thing as having values
Mm-hmm.
and living up to your values, right? And I think that is what we need to communicate, right? Is that don't choose this. The most unmanly thing you can do is choose like a hegemonic block and be like, I want to look like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has to become unattractive to
Yeah.
people to just sort of be a follower and like try to match this like hyper masculine macho energy, want to dominate the room, want to dominate the women, want to dominate the workplace, want to just be an absolute like whatever they like these narratives that they create. Just it is unattractive, actually. It is. You just have to point out why it is,
Mm-hmm.
because it's performative. It's not authentic, right? If it is, it would. And maybe in certain cases, like maybe in Charlie, I would say for Andrew Tate it's performative. For
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Kirk, it definitely did come from like a place of these are my values, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I believe. But yeah, it's just like his values are very much far right, or like sort of middle
Mm-hmm.
right leaning. um And I guess the left just needs to communicate their values better. I think this is something we're failing to do. I think a lot of people who would call themselves left are still very much liberal.
Hmm.
And there's a difference. There's a difference between being actually on the left and being just like center left.
Yeah, I mean, that's a separate question on to what extent the left has kind of, what does it mean? Is it more, has it become more about the equality of identities than, for example, economic equality? I think that a lot of people on the left have very conveniently forgotten about class differences, for example, and income differences. And I think a lot of the unhappiness amongst men as well is actually economic unhappiness, is actually the unhappiness of people who find it difficult to make ends meet, and yearn back for days in which um, they felt like they could have a good, honest, manly job that would just pay for the family. Um,
Yeah.
but again, I mean, that's a manufactured problem, right? Because that's a problem in which it's an economic problem, right? As in, like, it's an exploitation
Yeah.
problem. Um, yeah,
It's, yeah. It's always like, oh, the direction of progress.
I'm
Who's
I'm
who's direct?
really I'm really curious about this and like the actual motivations of people who are really strongly arguing for as fast a progress as possible. Because I agree with something Rob said earlier as well, which is that social progress is slow. And having the kind of social progress that we're wanting to have right now, it does take time. And if we have a technological progress that effectively forces social progress, right? And this progress is going on. So, and I mean technological progress that, such as, living online, for example, right? Or the introduction of AIs or whatever else, that is effectively enforcing social changes that people are not actually ready for or happy with. Um, like, but is it like yeah, I don't know. Is it possible to, I guess, how do you stop it? I mean, you don't really. So I just am sometimes quite pessimistic about those things. As in, are
Yeah.
we through technological progress, and that's some kind of like, materialist vision of history, but through technological progress, we are forcing a social change that we are not ready for, and that
Yeah.
and that generates a lot of grievance and a lot of, wanting to go back to something that worked before, despite the fact that
Yeah.
it didn't work for everyone, obviously.
No, but I mean, there are certain elements, and I think this was mentioned in your last discussion session about creating alternative spaces where people can live as a community
Hmm.
with their own, like with more progressive rules.
Hmm.
Doesn't it could be like a, a, a coming together of like conservative sort of vision of like the
Hmm.
family, the
Yep.
dog, the whatever, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
but while inclusive enough to welcome and absolutely cater to all different segments of society that want to live alternative lifestyles,
Hmm.
but creating this respectful environment where it can be done. I don't think it's an impossible problem. I really think what we need is to stop trying to fix this machine that's essentially geared towards just moving forward,
Hmm.
irrespective of how many people it stomps over. Like
Yeah.
we will continue to have more and more and more and more crises, and our crises are getting more and more and more meta. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and this is also super important from the perspective of this being a systemic problem and in need of a systemic solution as well. Because, like you say, we have designed a system that manufactures crises, right? And we have designed a system in which it is well, it's just really difficult to not be in constant crisis. Um, and I don't think that any advice that is focused on personal development or on your own values and virtues or on, how one gender does something to the other or whatever else is a solution because the problem is not that you are not um, having enough, capacity to build meaning in your life. No, you're embedded in systems that are making it extremely difficult. Um, so I think it's about changing those systems, and that's obviously extremely difficult.
Yeah. And I think there's an element of human psychology that's at play here that's also a bit difficult if you want to talk about difficult things, is that it's easy to rally us up against an enemy and
Yeah.
make something that is mundane
Mm-hmm.
and normal appear like a nuisance.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is a nuisance, and there is a way of tackling it that would allow everybody to prosper, but there will always be these populist voices that will use that nuisance and your experience of it as a way for them to gain power. And I think that's another element that's going to be difficult to actually, bypass.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how do you bypass basic human psychology? That is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
really fast.
that got pretty pessimistic.
Well, I mean, if we want to be hopeful, there's a lot of let's try to think optimistically, right? Well, um, there is an argument to be made that the same internet that created all of these this extreme polarity and extreme division
Mm-hmm.
can also be used to create unity. We
Mm-hmm.
just have to change the algorithms. We have to bring people onto those algorithms, and I think that's what we've seen it with Telegram. We've seen how willing people are to ditch the old for a new, a
Mm-hmm.
more private. People, we assume that most people, or I've heard it being said by tech people in the US that, oh, people just don't care about privacy.
Mm-hmm.
People have no options. You
Yeah.
have created these tightly locked ecosystems where all my friends are.
Yeah.
And so if I go hang out with my friends, I have to walk in. And if I have to walk in, I have to confirm and give away all my data to you. But if there is an alternative that's created, I
Mm-hmm.
think people have demonstrated in multiple occasions that they are willing to migrate to something better. And I mean, the reason why Blue Sky didn't work is because it lacks that network effect that X has, right? It has
Mm-hmm.
so many, and that's what makes these platforms attractive. And I think it's just a new platform. It's sort of, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm skeptical of any of those problems can be solved with a single, you know, like new platform or solution. But I mean, I agree with you that like providing people with the spaces in which they um, can thrive is, is the way. But obviously, well, doing that is not as profitable as exploiting people, right? And so
Yeah,
then, who is there out there who would have enough interest and money in this to make it actually happen? Because we can all say like, oh yeah, it should happen, but well, who's gonna get up and make it happen, right?
yeah. I mean, what you say is what we need is spaces, and I think we're trying to go against this like Goliath as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to end this. What if we just allowed a few people to get the help and transform their lives? I think that is also just as valuable. I think what you're doing here is creating a space, one of those spaces, and you're not working alone.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many people who are, working tirelessly towards this social change, and I think that's sort of what matters is that we are actively creating these spaces that
It's
people are using are helpful to
Hmm.
people who want to transform, change their lives.
Yeah, there's definitely the idea, and I think that one of those changes is, yeah, one of those changes in transforming your lives is to reimagine what it is to be a man as well, right? Like in a way that actually allows us to thrive in those worlds rather than a way which is just prone to crisis all the time because it fundamentally does not, um, it's exploitable, right? So yeah, I think that yeah, thank you very much. I think that creating those spaces is, a little brick that we can put into this whole project. So guess let's keep doing
We
that.
found we found our optimistic spin,
Fantastic, amazing. All right. Thank you
right?
very much for this discussion. I really appreciate you being here. And despite all of the technical challenges, we have managed to still have a really interesting talk. So thanks very much for that. I'm going to stop the
Thank
stream
you.
now. I
Thank you,
don't know.
Simon.
Hmm